Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Political Vigilante. My name is Graham Elwood, coming to you deep inside California quarantine, COVID-19. It is great to have a returning guest on the show who's done the show a million times. You might know him online as SnorkY2K. We also know him as Mitchell Helt. Mitch, how are you?
Hello.
It's great to see you, boy. It seems like it was a year ago that you and I were in a hotel room with rubber gloves on doing this show, which wasn't weird at all. Nothing weird
No,
about that at all.
no, I showed up at the front desk with a bucket full of samples and a tiny rubber chicken and I can't remember what else. And and they said, "How do we know it's really okay for you to come see the comedian?" Because I checked in at the desk, and they go, "Well, I've got a rubber chicken and rubber gloves," and they said, "Okay, yeah." Called me right up.
That's all you need to get into to go see a comedian. It's a rubber chicken and rubber gloves. Oh, okay. Well, nobody else would have that, so that sounds fantastic. Well, one of the things you've talked about on this show before is you've talked about manufacturing, and now kind of more than ever, we're seeing how important it is as we have this shortage of masks and ventilators. I heard a story that Ford Motor Company is trying to retrofit their factories to build ventilators. There's a t-shirt company here in Southern California that had to shut down because they were non-essential, and then they figured out the owner kind of got some new equipment and retrained his employees, and now they're making cotton masks, and they're got orders through the roof. So we're really seeing the importance, first of all, of workers. I mean, this COVID-19 is showing how deadly capitalism is, and what globalization and shipping products overseas, and if everything was made here, how much better it would be. But so what can you enlighten us with in terms of manufacturing that could be done to help with what's going on?
Well, I used to be an industrial engineer, then a manufacturing engineer. I basically designed, built, and supported factories in putting products out. Later, I started troubleshooting factories as well as helping other engineers and scientists get products out when they had ideas. And so I'm really familiar with making things like ventilators and all. And at one place, I made artificial heart valves. Um, there were disposable valves used in heart lung machines. So they would basically be used for one patient, then discarded.
Hmm.
And we made them out of an injection molded plastic. Now, there's multiple methods of making plastic. One method is to push it into a mold. Uh, uh, the 3D printer basically is like squeezing a tube of toothpaste over a surface and moving the surface or moving the toothpaste until you make a pile the shape of what you want and let the plastic cool and it becomes hardened. So it's not exactly as solid as something that is injection molded.
Hmm.
Um, and while 3D printers are quite versatile, there are some things that uh, issues that they have, but it's always not always bad. One of the problems with making medical equipment is liability. I believe that General Motors has pulled out of their offer to make ventilators.
Well, I heard it was from Ford. I didn't know General Motors had as well, but
Okay,
um,
and
I
I
don't know
might have.
specifically about that. I just saw that story on the news several days ago that Ford had offered to do that, and I don't know where it stands as of today because I know everything's changing every 10 minutes. But
People think of labor and material as the most expensive part. The most expense, the biggest expense most manufacturing firms have is often insurance, liability insurance.
hmm.
In the case of something where somebody's life depends on it, a ventilator, when it fails, the patient dies.
Right.
Um, and often they'll be approached by somebody that says, well, you could sue them. And there's people that their full-time job is picking apart everything you do, approaching and people and say they did this wrong, they wronged you, you can sue them for everything they have. So it becomes very expensive to insure what you've done. So for people that have 3D printers, I was thinking of volunteering to my local hospital to make some masks. Is I would ask for a a liability release before I even considered giving it to them, because a lot of times the patient dies regardless of the quality of the product, but they sue anyway.
Yeah, that's, I mean,
So
that's even a bigger issue, just in terms of one of the reasons our health system is so expensive is malpractice insurance. Is like doctors can't afford it. I mean, it's through the roof.
right now, there are going to be people, if we pass a law against suing them, that would take advantage of that and purposely undercut the quality. So I do see that there is a balance there.
Right.
And believe it or not, I've encountered those type of companies. Uh, they're out there, anything to make a dollar. They don't care if they kill people.
No.
And it's I've seen large companies say that it's cheaper to take the hit than pay the insurance. So just let the people die, instead of having engineers try to fix it. And so, but I didn't mean to get off track. So if we focus on the manufacturing part, back in the 90s, somebody came up with the idea of let's move all manufacturing offshore. And she was very proud that she talked her husband into saying NAFTA.
Who could you be talking about, man? I can't. I'm just trying to think of the now. Well, there's a couple that did NAFTA. I can't think of them. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, anyway, World War II. Our people were better fighters than the British. Our people were better fighters than the French. What were we able to do? We supplied them with everything.
Right.
Our people did a good job when they were there, but the other countries that we supplied, Canadians, all kinds of people, we supplied everything. We supplied them food. We supplied them every piece of equipment, guns, bullets, whatever, because they basically lost all their ability to manufacture in Europe. People going up against Germany either were taken over by Germany, or they just didn't have the output capabilities for how much was needed. So our biggest weapon the United States ever had, since the 1920s, even the late teens, was our ability to manufacture. We were spending all kinds of money on weapon systems, and the most vulnerable enemy that we have, or enemy we're most vulnerable to, is disease. We disarmed ourselves when we signed NAFTA and we let stuff go offshore. For instance, to make a ventilator, you have to supply a certain amount of water to the ventilator to keep from damaging the lungs with dry air. So you need a part that used to be manufactured in the United States to control that. It looks like this. And luckily I ordered one before the crisis hit. So this device, if we look at it closely, can you read that? Right there.
Made in China.
Yes. So our supply line to get these was cut in February. So the part on top of it, we talk about, hey, let's 3D print it, whatever. Part on top of it is plastic, an injection molded plastic. It takes weeks to make a very intricate mold to prepare something like this. If I did it in 3D print, it's going to be weaker, so more likely to break. And we don't want parts to break when we're keeping somebody alive. And so this turns on and off and allows just the perfect amount of water. We don't want to drown our patient. This keeps from drowning the patient. It also keeps the patient alive by keeping enough water going in there. So this woman that thought she was capable of being president decided that we didn't need this made in the United States anymore. Making this in the United States was more important than making 75,000 bombs. That we have anybody still running for president that supported that. And we currently have the most likely person to become the Democratic Party nominee, also supported this part not to be made in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So how could I ever consider that person worthy? Now, in order to control like a 3D printer at home, we would need to have something that controls more precise than the typical hobby devices that would control 3D prints. So the same person that decided that we didn't need to make, I don't know if it can focus, the same person that decided we didn't need to make that part in the United States. Let's see if we can get.
Does that say made in China as well?
Made in China. And I just got this today because they were on hold for a long time. So in order to be able to tell an exact position of a 3D printer, you've got to be able to sense where it's at certain times. So these little parts, we can make these in the United States. They were made in the United States long ago. Now they're not made in the United States. These aren't just useful for that purpose. There's all kinds of uses. Every one of these little parts I'm showing you was an extreme lack of foresight by the people who didn't realize how important it is that a majority of what we have here, and they don't remember when, even before the Clintons took office, there was another president. His name was Ronald Reagan. And it was recognized up until that point in time that manufacturing was so important in the United States that they would pay companies like General Motors, Ford, John Deere, and others additional 25% of whatever was required for them to run their business if they maintained a steady state to make defense materials for the United States, whatever was needed. And Ronald Reagan, I think it was 1984, stopped the program that Trump is trying to restart, this defense production. It used to be, until that date, that all kinds of engineers were kept on staff of these large companies that would keep reviewing their stuff every day to say, okay, if we need to make some medical equipment, are we capable of doing that? Can we change tractors to making tanks? Because actually tractors are like one of the easiest things to change into a tank, especially Caterpillars. But there's so many little pieces that are so related to medical gear. Of the 22,500 manufacturing type parts that Hillary Clinton was proud of sending offshore, all of those are necessary for making medical equipment, because the ability to make the parts for the cars, little machines that control other machines, the electronic that controls those machines, the little tires even for rolling the cart down the hallway, all that used to be made in the United States. And suddenly the definition became, if it's important for defense, it has to shoot or kill someone. And they forget there's a equation, just like assets equal income plus liability. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Just like you have that equation in economics, you have another equation for people in disasters, and you equate your ability to survive a war and survive and recover with your ability to inflict damage. So if you come up with something that shields people from getting injured in a war, it's considered just as effective as something that shoots the enemy.
Right. Well, I mean, the thing that we're seeing here with this is, and what you're talking about, is how NAFTA is actually compounding this pandemic today because it shipped all these jobs overseas. I've mentioned this numerous times. So when all the sanctions that hit Russia during the Obama administration, so Russia had to learn how to grow all of its own food and make all of its own products. So when COVID-19, they share a border with China, they sealed their borders, and they have national, they have free medicine for their citizens, and they have all the medical supplies. They don't have to go ship them. They're not in the thing that you're talking about right now. And we're desperately in need of ventilators, and we don't even have the equipment to make them. We have to kind of refigure this because they are all made and shipped overseas, and we can't accept anything from China now since February, as you pointed out. And they've been talking about pandemics for 20 or 30 years. I mean, they've been talking about this since Reagan and the first Bush were in office and before Clinton got into office. And this should have been prepared. And we're seeing how lack of prepared we are for 3-4 decades of just ridiculous neoliberal policies like NAFTA. And this should be in place. And we're seeing in real time how awful this capitalist system is and this two-party system that just signed some ridiculous stimulus. Oh, $2 trillion for America. By the way, there's $4.25 trillion that's given directly to corporate America that will be used to take more property and buy up restaurants and buy up everything else. Anyway, I'm going off a little bit here, but back to what you were saying.
I'm not suggesting bring all manufacturing back. You see, if we don't trade, our stuff becomes worthless.
Sure.
So what we want is absolutely perfect is equity trade with everybody. That somehow we trade the equal amount with someone else that they trade with us, or a third party. We trade something to a third party and they trade something for them, but we're in the loop somehow. It comes from here. And we want an equal amount back from them, or an equal amount to come back through somebody else to us. And that's equity transfer. And the biggest purchaser in the world is the United States Pentagon. Nobody buys more cars than them. Nobody buys more pens. Nobody buys more paper. Nobody buys more socks than the United States Pentagon. We think about the money they spend in bombs. They spend money on everything. So the fastest thing we can do to make us the safest as possible around the thing is to enact a law that says in order to purchase from the United States Pentagon, you have to be at equity trade with us 3 out of 5 years. And we would see 25% of the factories that we lost back here almost immediately. Because being on that list is the most important list for almost every country in the world, every company in the world.
But also let's and I think that's a great point, but let's also get back to what is happening here with this pandemic of closing the borders. And we're going to have another pandemic down the road, and we're going to have to do the same thing again. It's going to originate somewhere, and we're going to have to close the borders. Maybe it'll originate here, I don't know. So how do we, from a manufacturing standpoint, what would you think would be the best to put into place? Obviously, do more manufacturing in the United States, but as you said, not exclusively, but have more laws, or how would you explain it, in place to get us ready to go online to produce certain products in the middle of a pandemic?
There's a feature called ramping. How long does it take us to go from our current level to the level we want to be? When you open a factory, it can take a while from the time you can make 1 car to the time you can make 20 to the time you can make 30 or 40 per minute. And we have that ramping problem now. Is look how old I am. I'm one of the younger people to have designed a large factory. By this 30 years, or almost 30 years, that the Clintons industrialized the United States, they've left a small pool of us that are experienced to go back and train the new generation to get out there and enact this. So really, the first thing we need to do is we need to get the monies to school. The students need to be able to afford to go to school. That's why we need the hey, if you go to college, enact what Finland and Denmark do. We're not going to charge you tuition. We're going to pay you to go to school. As long as you keep your grades up, you're going to get a good check.
Because you're saying we need these people trained. That's why we would have student debt forgiveness and free college and also paying them. It's because we're saying we need a new crop of engineers and manufacturers to bring all these manufacturing jobs back in whatever. And you and I have had numerous conversations about manufacturing in regards to reversing climate change and fighting a pandemic as part of that.
One of the issues I encountered was we have a problem that there is a lack of people with master's degrees in the United States that can teach technical courses. And immediately I had another department asking me to teach classes there because when something is technical, you need somebody with an accent that you can understand to go. And it can be very difficult. So our students were having problems understanding the teachers we could get because we were having troubles um, getting people who were extremely intelligent, but they just got here and they really are still struggling with their speaking English. And I'm certain that I would have the same problem or worse if I had to teach in their country. Uh, but we are hit with an avalanche of the students we do have are not Americans. And that is a major issue that we need teachers that people can understand.
So they're getting their education here and then they're going back to where their country is, especially like China that has huge manufacturing, or India, and they're taking their American master's degree there to apply to the manufacturing there. Is that what you're saying is happening?
No, a lot of them are actually getting their PhD here, but they've got their master's there.
Ah, I see.
Or if there are undergraduates here.
But either
Rarely
way, you're
see-
saying we don't have enough Americans with master's degrees in manufacturing and engineering.
Yeah, we do not. It's 1 in 10,000 engineers goes for a master's. And so this is an infrastructure that we've been talking about bridges. This is a people infrastructure. We lay so much debt on that people can't get jobs. A lot of when you're going for a job with something technical, they check your credit rating. If they see that you've got $25,000-$30,000 worth of loans, you won't get hired.
Wow.
A lot of engineers used to get their training through the defense department. You cannot get a job working on anything in the defense department if you have major debt.
Jesus.
So we keep shooting ourselves in the foot here. I know that the only way I could afford to go to master's school, or get my master's degree, grad school, was to actually have my company that I worked for paid for it. And I had to take an extra area of study that I really didn't want to do because that was the only way they would pay for it. And I suppose I should be happy now. It's the only reason I have any kind of understanding of industrial toxicology was I had to do that in order to get my stuff paid for. And so we have all of these hurdles we need. We need to block, or we need to chop down all these hurdles to get as many people back to school. Look at the nursing shortage we have. A quarter of our nurses have to drop out because they do not have money to go to school.
Yeah. No, we have such a shortage that they're in New York, they're taking like nursing students and saying, you're graduated, we need you on the front lines right now, which, I mean, that's admirable. And, but it shows like how not prepared we were and what, we'll get on the other side of this one. But if we don't implement all the things that you and I and others have been talking about, what if the next one is more lethal? What if the next one has a higher mortality rate? What if and we're not ready for it? What are we going to do?
Well, if we look back to 1918, it mutated 2 times. There was 3 waves. We're having troubles dealing with the first wave. Immediately, we became, as of today, we're the worst hit of any country that it's hit. And it hasn't peaked here yet. Right now, majority of it, I know you have some on the West Coast, but the majority of it is still east of the Mississippi. Illinois is just still rising. Michigan is terribly hit. So we're currently off school. We have to teach online for at least another 2 weeks. And I'm not very confident that 2 weeks is going to hold, that we will probably be much longer than 2 weeks if we go back at all this spring or this summer.
Yeah, I know. And even if we do this summer, we're looking at probably 25 to 30% unemployment. And this bullshit stimulus plan that both parties just signed off on. I mean, I'm a supporter of Bernie Sanders, but I think a lot of that happened the other day, and him on the floor was just theatrics because they were going to pass it no matter what. I'm, and that, whatever. His biggest flaw is he still thinks I can reform within the system, and I'm going to. This bill isn't as, the first bill was bad, the second one's not as bad, and I'm going to attach some amendments to it. They're going to help people, and hey, we got to take the small victories. What can I do? I'm only one man, which, to me, it just shows how corrupt our two-party system is. And, our best chance is a guy that still thinks he can reform from within, which I think it's I think it's impossible to reform the Democratic Party from within. I just think it's impossible. And the corporations just got a huge $4.25 trillion. And they're going to start eventually, they're going to buy up the businesses. The mom and pop stores are going to go. The real estate's going to get snatched up again. What they did to me and 6 million other people in terms of stealing our homes, they're going to do it now with small businesses. I really am not a fan of this at all.
But people forget it's really not $4.2 trillion. They work on a fractional reserve system. So they don't have to stop spending money when they've spent their first $4 trillion.
Right.
They get to spend that 8 more times. And
yeah,
I really think we need a system where they cannot have such a large fractional anymore.
Mm-hmm.
To me, one of the major problems with all of this is that we don't tie the value of a company to a piece of ownership. So in many cases, the stocks have no value unless there's usually a tiered system where only one grade of stock has ownership in the company. The rest of the stocks actually have no more connection to the company that's being dealt with than it does wearing the jersey of a football team that you're watching.
That's a great analogy, man. That is a great analogy. Because,
yeah,
but I want to point out that analogy, part of what makes that analogy so great is it also shows that's the mindset that people have in terms of politicians and their parties. Like, I was just critical on Twitter of Bernie Sanders not calling, keep referring to Joe Biden, who is a rapist, as his good friend. And Bernie supporters like, Graham, stop attacking Bernie, because they're taking it personally. Like, you're making fun of Bernie's my team, my player. I wear this jersey. And it's like, no, you should. I've said this all the time on this show. I'm a big Bernie supporter. Big. I voted for him twice now, 16 and now. And if the supporters can't hold an elected official accountable, we're supporting him. We're voting for you. We're giving our money. So we want to hold you accountable. And they're not allowed. Any attack is lumped into the smear category. He gets a lot of ridiculous smears, but that whole mentality. And I've said this from day one, and you're seeing it now. When I called Tulsi Gabbard a sellout, some of her supporters are like, Graham, and like. If Bernie tells me to vote for Joe Biden, I will emphatically say, go fuck yourself and the Democratic Party. And that whole my team thing is such a, and because we've all been indoctrinated in that. We've all been indoctrinated from you're a Hawkeye, I'm fighting a lion eye, whatever. Like, we're all indoctrinated into that. And this is, it permeates, and it's how they're able to do this theater of like Bernie was fighting the Republicans on the floor of the Senate, It's all bullshit theater. Anyway, I just went off a little bit of a tirade, but
no, I completely agree. If I'm not voting for Biden, but I believe that after this, we need a rule that every share of stock must have value, that they cannot have multiple tiers of stock. Every tier of stock has to be the same. Every share of stock needs to be a vote. And if a company has $3 trillion worth of value and they ask for a $3 trillion bailout, 100% of their stock goes to the government. That's the only way I see is that we do not get to make up money anytime we want. they should not be allowed to either. If they want to bail out, especially when we talk about banks, why does a bank collect interest from us?
Yeah.
The reasoning they give is they're loaning us their money. Well, why are we paying them anything if we're giving them a bailout and we're paying the taxes?
I know. It's
So we should be getting two things. Now, a bank can take the money that they give and they can multiply it by 9. So basically add 9 more times to what they get. So I want to see that every time they ask for $1, that we get that amount in equity plus 8 times that as a check to every American. So like if they have 8 trillion, there's how many, 300 million people, then we should each get a $30,000 check.
yeah. Yes. Like,
And
instead of all this bullshit bank bailout, what if every American went, here's 30, rents are frozen, here's 30 grand. Bam. There you go. Every American go, okay, I don't have to pay bills, 30 grand, and say, and banks can offer, we'll give you a high rate CD, a COVID CD rate, or whatever the fuck they want. I don't give a shit. But anyway, man, I could talk about this for hours. Mitch, I really appreciate you shedding light on the importance of manufacturing and, again, how NAFTA is killing Americans because it shipped medical products overseas.
Yes. The two main people to blame for COVID-19 are Ronald Reagan and Hillary Clinton.
I'm all for it. 2 Republicans, as it turns out.
Hillary Clinton was not my friend. Bernie should be required to say this every time he says friend.
Yeah. My friend. Well, Mitch, thank you so much for coming on and enlightening us. Thank you for supporting the show. I really appreciate you and everybody else supporting me because I lost a bunch of road work, but I've actually been able to do more content. And if you're on the live chats, I do every Sunday, 3 p.m. Pacific, and I'm doing more live chats during the week during this quarantine. I announce them on Twitter. If you see Snork Y2K, this is who you're talking to. So thank you so much, Mitch, and everybody out there, you're making Gotham great again. Shave your knuckles for justice. Hey, everybody, like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell notification button and the subscribe button, even if you've done it before, because they're unsubscribing, many of you, every day. Watch the ads all the way through. If you click skip ad, I don't get paid. Also, support us at patreon.com/GrahamElwood or rockfin.com/GrahamElwood. Rockfin.com is a blockchain cryptocurrency platform. All my videos are on Rockfin ad-free. Thanks for watching.